Good morning, everybody.
Ja, mami, dat was muy cerrado de que. Ja.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well on this warm winter's morning. Well, cold winter's morning, sorry. We will start in a few minutes. We're just waiting until about 9 o'clock to see that everybody has joined us. Thank you.
Hi, Mel. Okay, sorted now.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Morning, Joy. Loud and clear, darling.
We can hear you. Morning, B. All the best.
Morning,
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's 1 minute past 9, and I see that we have 16 participants. I'd like to propose that we actually just take a few more minutes, maybe till 5 minutes past 9, to allow other people to sign on. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you, Joy.
Great, thanks.
Good morning, all. For those that have just joined us, we're giving it another maybe 1 or 2 minutes just for more participants to join us, and then we'll continue. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Mel, I think we can start. I think we have enough participants in the room this morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Joy.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third webinar, the third webinar of the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. And this morning, we will explore the strategies and best practices to empower our communities to eradicate gender-based violence and femicide. We know that gender-based violence and femicide is a daily occurrence in our communities, and violence against women and children has been labeled as a pandemic in our country. And we know that there is not enough that is being done to remove the violence from our communities. Hence this webinar, to provide us with the tools and the knowledge and the skills from the best practices in the sector. So thank you for logging on to this platform as we discover ways in which to enable our communities to eliminate gender-based violence and femicide. My name is Joy Lang, and I've been a member of the executive of the National Shelter Movement for the past 12 years, and have also been serving on the National Shelter Movement board for the past year now. And I have the pleasure in introducing our contributors this morning. I have the pleasure in introducing Mr. Victor Pike. And Victor resides in Manenberg. He is an activist of note, a community builder, and a mentor to the boy child. And we know the importance of the boy child in our communities. He's with the organization called Father a Nation, and is running high impact workshops, trainings, and men and women's dialogues. So good morning and welcome, Victor, and over to you.
Very good morning to everyone. I'm so excited. I'm so glad to be part of this platform. As you already introduced me, I'm residing in Manenberg, and I'm an activist that is running the workshop dealing with the broken men, wounded men in the community, trying to reduce the scourge of gender-based violence among men. As we all know that men are the perpetrators of gender-based violence. So as we run these programs, we have identified the root cause of this GBV. Firstly, we have identified the issues of fatherlessness and absenteeism of fathers to the life of a boy child that could be a contributor when they grow up without their fathers, without a guidance, without, role models. So basically, there's no reference for a boy child to say, I'm looking up to this man. Therefore, I would love one day to follow his footsteps. So we are living in a broken society, men who are broken, who are hopeless. So I am working in that space daily, where I gather men, 200 plus men every month in different areas around Metro region, Manenberg, Gugulethu, Nyanga, Hidafeld, Khayelitsha. And as we know that there are 4 hotspots at the moment of GBV, which is Delft, Khayelitsha, Nyanga, and Gugulethu, that I'm working on those areas for the past 2 months, running those workshops, trying to work together with communities and stakeholders to make sure that we are raising champion men that will take a responsibility, men that will say, not under my watch, not in my name, not bystanders. So encouraging men to not be bystanders, to say, it's not happening to me, it's happening next door, so I don't care. So men must be activists, they must be proactive to prevent. Well, the only thing that we have now, we only react when we see a man slaughtering a woman, abusing. But we are not proactive. So encouraging all men to take part. So I'm a father of a boy child. I'm the advocate of a woman, and I'm working very hard to make sure that we're a high impact organization, that we want to see men changing. We don't just do hit and run programs. We're working 365 days a year. So so far we have done so well, because I've got testimonies of men which have come through my program. Some were referred by Sachi Batman, thanks to Benny. Benedine who referred me. We have a very beautiful programs last year for 3 months where we have workshops. So those men that we impact, they are changing. They want to change. Some of them, they are still with my program. So I'm still busy working. So we do counseling telephonically or face-to-face. I do visit them. I also even go to Shibin. When men are so vulnerable, you go to Shibin, then you talk to men, then they will tell you stories that, the only thing for me to avoid problems at home is alcohol. So they consume too much alcohol and go home and cause problems. So we go there and talk to them in a shibin, in that space, and they will talk. Some they will cry because men, they were told that men must be strong. Men don't cry, big boys don't cry, which it was very wrong because men are broken and they need a space. Basically, as an organization, we are opening a conducive space for men to ventilate, to speak out their problems so that they can get healed. So I have also noticed that there is no therapy for men to go and heal. They are not really accommodated in terms of where they have problems at home. They can also go to a certain place to come down and get counseling and talk among other men and so forth. So I'm creating those platforms, but I need to do more, as you just alluded that gender-based violence is a pandemic, so it's a monster among our communities. Unfortunately, I always say men have created or maybe have declared a war against women. So we need to work together, both genders, female gender, male genders, to reduce the scourge of GBV. So I'm so glad that I'm given this opportunity and I'm looking forward. Yeah, that is us as Father Nation in a nutshell. That is what we do. We have testimonies, men who have, go through the program and then today they become real men. And we're encouraging them that this unemployment thing, that if you're unemployed, you are not a man or you are less man, because that's how they feel, that if they can't provide as men, they result in fighting and abusing because now there's nothing else they can do. So we're trying to also create a space where they can go and be skilled and do something else, so that they can they take away the stress of I can't provide, I don't have a job and so forth. So there's so many things. And also we also partner with traditional leaders and religious leaders. The reason why traditional leaders, because, as a Xhosa man, Sotho man, traditional man who grew up in a village, I was told that a man is the only person that can, lead the way at home, or no one can say anything. If I say, let's do this, no one will tell me no or whatever. So they must understand that women also have a right to say in the matter and build a family and so forth. So they mustn't have this arrogance of say, I'm a man, therefore no one will tell me. So they hide behind tradition that as a man, I have a final word. So we hook in the traditional leaders, chiefs and kings, and sit down with them and talk to men and say, let's talk tradition. This is not working anymore. Maybe early 60s it was fine, but not anymore. And religious leaders is the same as well, because some men are getting abused, women in the church. So also talk to those religious leaders to say, let us be equal. Thank you very much.
So much, Victor. May I ask that you just please put your video on so that we can at least see who we are engaging with?
Yes, sorry. All right.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Victor. I would suggest that we keep any questions, I'm sure there are, for Victor after we've had all the presentations. And I am so pleased to hear that the work that you are doing in terms of encouraging men and more especially the collaboration between a women's shelter and a men's program and a men's organization, that is really groundbreaking. And so that space that you are creating of working together is really what is going to pave the way in terms of us combating violence against women. So thank you so much. We'll keep the questions for you for later on. I'm going to hand over to Bernadine Bacher. And Bernadine Bacher is an advocate of the High Court of South Africa. Bernie has been involved in protecting women and children's rights throughout her career as an advocate, both in private practice and as a family advocate. She served as a senior family advocate for the Cape Peninsula for many years. Bernie was appointed as director of SARC Department Center for Women and Children in January 2028. And Bernie has been serving on the executive of the National Shelter Movement for the past 5 years. And she's also the president of the Seroptimist International and Cape of Good Hope, head of advocacy for the Seroptimist International South Africa. So thank you, Bernie, and I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Joy, and good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'd just like to say thank you for having this opportunity to speak to everybody about a subject that is very dear to my heart. We've heard Victor speaking about the need to bring men and boys into the conversation about how we're going to use their knowledge, their skills, to build safer communities for women and children. And I have been, as Joy has set out, I've been in the sector for, this is my 6th year, cannot believe it. Feels like 120 years. But excuse me, it feels like very, very many more years. And in those 6 years, I have steadily watched the already horrifying statistics of gender-based violence when I came into the sector rise year upon year upon year. And watching the work that was being done on the ground, I was constantly stupefied as to why it appeared that we weren't really making a significant impact into femicide and gender-based violence in our respective areas. And I came to believe that after doing some research on the subject, that we really needed to start looking at our community-based responses to gender-based violence and have programs really that are aimed at community responses, because a lot of the prevention work can be done in our communities. So I started looking into what was being done in communities, both nationally as well as internationally, and try to see how we could possibly make a difference in the work that we do. Can I ask Mel? Mel, can you put my presentation up, or should I?
I've given you access to share screen, Bernadine.
Okay, let me try. There we go. Just let me know if it comes up.
It's up, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so why community-based responses to gender-based violence? Well, it's simple. This quote sets it out really, really well. Humans live in and are shaped by, and in turn, they shape the environment in which they live. Individuals cannot be considered separately from their environment. People's health and safety-related knowledge, attitude, behaviors, and skills reflect their life experiences, and these experiences are determined by broader institutional structures, cultural forces, and social relations within the community. Basically, what this is saying is that when we are looking at a community and we're looking at a scourge like gender-based violence, every community's needs are different. The forms of gender-based violence that are perpetrated in those environments can be different. So the responses to gender-based violence within each community will be slightly different because it'll be informed by those needs, but it also will be informed by the stakeholders that are present within that community. The wonderful thing about community-based responses to gender-based violence is that it not only speaks to responding to violence, but actually a lot of work, like Victor has spoken about, is done in preventing violence. So why we in South Africa have such a difficult task ahead of us in eradicating GBV is that we live in a deeply patriarchal society. It's a society that really speaks to harmful norms and behaviors that are cultural, that are endemic to our environment, that we have a lot of work within our communities in eradicating. So those social norms and perceptions about the role of women in society and the concept of masculinity, as Victor has just set out, we have this idea that men can't cry, that men have to provide within our communities, which really embeds trauma. So any response to gender-based violence within the community level has to take into consideration community values when addressing GBV. When I started doing this research, I started to look at how we at the Saki Bartman Center could really respond to gender-based violence within the communities that we serve. And what a community-based response would really look like. We then formed what we call the GBV Hub. It's been in existence now for just over a year and a half. And that hub really seeks to do two things. One is to make sure that all the stakeholders in the community are working together, that they're coordinated, so that if a woman or a child comes into the circuit and she's seeking assistance, that we will know exactly where she needs to go in terms of the stakeholders that are available to her. So let me give you an example. A woman engages with me to come into the Saki Bartman Center because she's at risk. I know at the Saki Bartman Center, she's now safe, and there are a number of psychosocial programs that I can run with her and a number of economic programs, but I also know that there's another level of assistance that she needs. Probably first up, she might need medical assistance. So I would be aware of the fact that she needs to engage with the Tutuzela care centers. Once she's had her medical needs seen to, we're also aware that she probably will need a protection order or to lay a charge with South African Police Services. So there we know that we need to engage the Department of Justice as well as law enforcement. The hub seeks to make sure that the survivor and her family are actually accessing all the services that are available to her, and that she doesn't fall through institutional cracks. When I was doing this research, I was noticing more and more what was happening was when women were saying that they hadn't received the support that they needed, it wasn't that the support wasn't there within communities. What it was is that there wasn't coordination between the structures or the stakeholders, and somewhere between a shelter and the court, she might drop off the circuit. So the gender-based violence hub or community-based responses to gender-based violence really seeks to do two things: to walk her through the stakeholders so that she doesn't fall through institutional cracks. The other part is to make sure that you're doing the work within the community that speaks to prevention of violence. So the work that Victor has just spoken about, workshops with men, workshops with boys, workshops with women as well, that speaks to harmful norms and behaviors and stereotypes, as we heard last month, from Caroline and Thelma, really starting to unpack the values that underpin first the patriarchy and therefore really boost GBV rates in South Africa. So as I set out, an effective response to GBV requires a coordination of multiple institutions and professions, including medical services, police and security forces, traditional judicial systems, non-governmental organizations, schools, psychosocial service providers, and religious centers. To work effectively, these institutions must be linked and work in harmony. And survivors need to be able to navigate that system. So the GBV hub in Manenberg works in the following way. We meet up once a month. The hub consists of key stakeholders like the medical profession, South African Police Services. Our Manenberg SAPs are very, very key to the hub. as well as CBOs in the area. So Rape Crisis, Sarki Bartman Center, Victor's organization, the ESD is also part of that, and that's the local offices, part of that hub. And we meet up every month and we speak to what is needed within the community for the next month. So it might well be that Manenberg SAPS has been called by one of the primary schools or the high schools that are set out that has been an increasing amount of sexual assaults perpetrated against girls or boys in the school. And can we possibly run a workshop there? So what will happen is all the service providers would then make sure that our services are available, and we would generally run these workshops in looking for the word, I can't find the word, together, much easier word. So we would go off together, CBOs, and actually address the challenges that have been identified. And you might well ask yourself why is it so important that we do have community structures really seeking to see that women don't fall through cracks when accessing services, and also that we're doing the prevention work within our societies. So a short time ago we did a very brief survey of CBOs and government departments within South Africa, really looking to see whether those that work in the field could identify where the gaps and the challenges were. And this is going to be absolutely no news to you whatsoever, because you'll all agree with that. The challenges we're seeing with lack of access to health clinics, lack of access to the Tutuzela care centers, lack of access to victim-friendly centers at SAPS, as well as low functionality of those centers that were available, low arrests of perpetrators, lack of DSD field workers, lack of outreach or educational programs in communities for NGO that render services to survivors, and then lack of resourcing, we can talk about that for days, and lack of coordination, collaboration between various stakeholders. So this is what those in the sector were telling us was really, really needed, that we needed to start taking all our stakeholders and working together with each other to make sure that we were really addressing the support that we could give to survivors, as well as how we could go about as community stakeholders, community members, and start really dismantling those harmful norms and beliefs that underpin gender-based violence. So the research that I did really highlighted a number of things that an effective model would actually require. And this research that looked at not only national models, because there aren't a whole lot of national models. There's some really interesting work being done in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng on gender-based violence, community-based responses. But there hasn't been a sustained effort over a number of years where we can really start measuring impact. But the study that I did really identified the following gaps in the community work that we were already doing, and said that we should be looking at doing the following: that we need to identify key community institutions in the areas of law and education, medicine, and psychosocial services. And that then we needed to take those community institutions and form partnerships through training and workshops so that we all know what the other community-based organizations in our areas were doing, so that we can work impactfully together to make sure that we are addressing the needs of that community. Once that is done, the need then becomes to educate our community members. So what we've done with CBOs in the area in Manenberg is we run workshops, and I think Caroline dealt with this quite extensively. We run workshops for first responders in the area. Generally, the neighborhood watch women, we would then run a 4-day workshop with them, really speaking to gender-based violence, unpacking trauma, the effects of trauma on women and children, and the effects of trauma on men, the impact of that on communities, and then really educating those community members about the resources that are available within their communities, so that they themselves, when they're out on the road responding to episodes of crime or need, that they are available immediately. They would know, oh, this woman needs to be safe, so let me take her to Sarki Bartman Center. She needs a protection order. I need to go down to the Athlone court and get one for her. So that we really start seeing to the needs of survivors and their children on the ground as those needs are occurring, but making sure that we're closing off that loop. As Victor said earlier, a lot of work has to go into making sure that religious leaders and the work that they're doing is pulled into this model, because religious leaders are in a unique position that they are probably sometimes in society the first point of call when violence happens. It will happen. A woman might go into church, speak to, and I'm just using a Christian example, go into church or go into a shul or go into a mosque and speak to a religious leader and say, I need help with X, Y, and Z. If we bring religious leaders into this conversation, into making them sure that they feel a part of the solution, we'll be able to help more women more effectively. And it won't be seen that gender-based violence or domestic violence that is occurring with congregants is something that needs to be either hidden and or worked off on the side within the shadows. Other things that are needed with a community-based response to gender-based violence, I've dealt with this earlier, is education at formative level of young people. So going out to schools and doing workshops with children, particularly the very young children in grades 1, 2, and 3, about domestic violence, about gender-based violence. Obviously, this information is pitched at their level, but really speaking to them at that age so that they'll be able to, number one, identify it, but also be aware of the support that is available when it happens so that they can call it out. And or if that is not safe, to actually go and inform somebody that can assist them further. It's obvious that any community-based response to gender-based violence would need to include support groups for both women and men and children. And we have found that there is a lot of value to be found in using the media, technology-based initiatives to actually disseminate information within communities, to get information out quicker, but also to assist women that might need it immediately. And then obviously the end result of the effort at continuous betterment really needs to look at things like surveys at household level into patterns and prevalence of gender-based violence within communities. And Victor's already spoken to the fact that we need to really engage men and boys in that fight. So your next question to me might be, okay, Bern, we know all about this. We all work in the gender-based violence and femicide field. We're aware that we all have spent many years working in silos, and that we have a huge job ahead of us in eradicating GBVF. And you've spoken to us now about how we can bring our communities in and make our communities part of the solution. But is it working? You're saying that you have been doing it for 1.5 years. Victor has spoken to the work that he's doing with men and boys. What is happening in the community? And can you give us a little bit of insight into whether it's effective? So I can. I had a meeting with SAPS where we looked at the stats for crimes that were related to gender-based violence for the year 2022. So 1 February 2022 to 28 February 2023, and then for the following year, sorry, the year before that. And we had a look at whether there had been any increase or decrease in those stats. The following was the results. When it came to assaults and within the Manenberg area, and as I said earlier, these incidences of crime will and the needs of each community will be very community specific. But within the Manenberg area, 80% of the common assaults that occur are gender-based violence, DV related. So for that period, over that 1 year period, the incidences of assault common dropped by 12%. The incidences of assault GBH, grievous bodily harm, dropped by 66% if you were comparing the financial year 2022 and the financial year 2023. Incidences of sexual offenses dropped by 60%, and the incidences of sexual assaults dropped by 80%. So quite clearly what these stats are telling us is that this really does work. that if you take your institutions that work in communities and you bring them together and you make sure that you are walking the survivor through the stakeholders and that you are doing the work that speaks to preventing gender-based violence by talking to harmful norms, behaviors, and the effects of trauma, that you really will be able to make a difference. So I'm going to conclude by saying that a survivor-informed, multi-agency, multi-prong approach is needed that covers all community organizations, stakeholders, and leadership figures across disciplines, including education, social work, law enforcement, religious organizations, and healthcare professionals. They're using community dialogues and awareness campaigns. And then obviously engagement with boys and men is critical to a comprehensive approach. I've said it again and again that the debilitating consequences of gender-based violence in South Africa can only be mitigated by including responses that extend to communities and community-based organizations. And in short, there is no easy way to prevent and respond to gender-based violence. A series of integrated and coherent approaches at all levels of society are required that involve the widest community representation to identify practical and local as well as national solutions for greatest likelihood of sustainable change. And I think that's really what sets this model apart, is that the solutions that we're looking for are not pitched up here. These solutions are community informed, but they are very practical. They are very easily implemented. It's the small steps really that make the bigger change. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for that insightful presentation. I know that you also also have another presentation that you're doing. How do you propose we move forward? Do you want us to first look at questions for yourself and Victor, or would you want to finish the other presentation as well?
Joy, I think it's better that we finish off the talks and then I can run into the presentation. Thanks.
Great stuff. So you will move to the next presentation then.
No, I think it's better that we finish off the talk about community-based responses, and then we can talk about the shelter.
Okay, great. So thank you for that insightful presentation, Bernie. It's really great in terms of the work that has been done on the ground with the community and all the various stakeholders to eradicate. And as you've stated, the statistics also pointing to the fact that it is eradicating the abuse and the violence that is taking place in our communities. So thank you for that. I'm going to open up to the floor to see if there are any questions for Victor as well as for Bernie. I see a hand there. Cindy Siwe, you may ask your question. You just need to unmute yourself. Great.
Yeah, good morning, Joy. So nice to see you.
Likewise.
Good morning, everyone. I just have a question for Victor. I'm sorry, I just came in a bit late. You were in the middle of your presentation, but I heard that you work closely with men and boys. Here in Gersibande, we have a center that also caters to just men. It's Men's Voice in Secunda. So do you does your organization maybe offer I don't know how to call it, maybe like to assist them in how you guys are working? Because by the way you explained your organization, it seems like you have this under control, like maybe to mentor like the other centers that are also catering are offering services to men and boys. Like, do you offer like mentoring services to such centers? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. Yes, of course, we do. We do mentor boys. We do offer our services to mentor boys. So we are national. So we occupied almost all the provinces. So if you need that service, then we can arrange, and our mentors, well trained, they can come and do the mentorship and whatever that they needed to be doing to assist those men and boys. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll do that. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
Joy.
Hi,
It's
Lisa.
Hi. Any questions, but I just wanted to make 2 comments. And firstly, somebody I think it was you that said the work that Victor's doing is groundbreaking, and it truly is, in my opinion, the most important work, because when young boys learn that there's a different way, then that's how we create a whole new society. So I really would love to support or do whatever I can also to support Victor and the work that they're doing from Anova Park. And then also to Bernadine, I just wanted to say how important it is for me when you do work and it is collaborative and measurable. So every time you do something and you're able to actually assess what an impact you're having. This has been so inspirational, both of your presentations. It's so motivational for people who sometimes feel hopeless because the situation always feels like it's totally out of control. And then there are little pockets of excellence where people are pioneering and doing work that can influence the world and improve how everything works in the country. If everybody had the same approach about that collaboration between all the different stakeholders, that's the only way that we can move forward. So thank you for the presentations. I really appreciated that.
Thank you, Lisa. Bernie, I just had a question that was nagging for me. In terms of the key stakeholders, I know that it's always difficult to keep everyone motivated and together in terms of the assistance, because you know life happens and things happens in different organizations. And the fact that you guys meet on a monthly basis, how do you continue to keep that motivation and that collaboration going amongst the various organizations?
Good question, Joy, because you know there is always everybody's so busy and inevitably people drop off. So I can say we started off with a lot more organization. So your observation is right there. But the key organizations that are there, we come every single month, and I think the reason we manage to always be there is that we see the value in what we're doing. We can see the change that is happening within the community. So that just spurs us on to make sure that we always are prioritizing that time. And we don't take a heck of a lot of time. We come in, we generally have an idea of what needs to be dealt with. Most of the requests for community prevention work would come out there. We very quickly would say, okay, Sarki would do this, or Victor would do that, or Callis Foundation will do that. And we put it all into a calendar and off we go, and we come back the next month. So it is also very structured and very focused, the meetings. Not, you know, it doesn't take a whole day. We've got 2 or 3 hours, get everything together and then leave again. But we have had people leave. It's just a matter of seeing the impact, and we all work very well together.
Right, yeah, I suppose it's with anything where people, you get to work with the committed ones. And I am absolutely pleased to hear that the local Department of Social Development is also part of it, which just strengthens that network, you know, so great. Are there any other questions for Bernie or Victor?
Yes.
Which might, I'm not, it's a question purely based on something that I've experienced. Do any organizations offer self-defense classes or training for women and children in communities? And the reason I'm asking is I once had a self-defense instructor say that she did some work with rapists who were in jail, and said to them, what would you do if if the person fought back. And 98% of them said she won't. So I was just wondering, it's just I'm exploring, because you all have more experience than me, but I'm just asking, because sometimes I've been for self-defense lessons, and sometimes there's simple things you can do in order to get away, or I don't know. I just think that there could be some value. You're not encouraging people to fight back, but just for some skills.
Yeah, protection more than anything else, Lisa. And I think Gillian can come in here, because if I remember correctly, and Joy, about
Yes.
2 or 3 years ago, we had an organization that came to the Western Cape Women's Shelter Movement that ran
Yes.
self-defense classes for survivors. So yes, there are organizations, and I think, it's critical that we start looking at things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There are also individuals that come to individual shelters to offer those skills as well. And I know that that has been happening with shelters, especially in the Western Cape. So thank you, everyone. If there aren't any other questions, I would ask that Bernie then continues with her next presentation. Bernie, I think you just need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Well, I'm having difficulty screen sharing now. Could I ask you just to put it up for me, and I'll start so long. And then I know we are running very late with time. Right. While we're waiting for that to come up, let me start. I was going to just briefly tell you a little bit about the Saki Bartman Center and the work that we do. Most of you will know that on the 27th of May, the center was accredited as the Khusaleka model for the Western Cape. And that accreditation provincially has been recognized for very many years. But let me speak to some of the work that has been done. Fantastic. Thank you, Mel. So the vision of the center is the creation of a safe and secure society and a human rights culture where women and children are empowered and live in a violence-free society. Now, a lofty ideal, really, having to craft a violence-free society is something that is increasingly difficult, but really what the work that we do, Mel, if you can move to slide 3 for me, really speaks to this idea of having a one-stop center or a Khusaleka model. And Khusaleka comes from the Zulu word meaning to be protected. And what we do at SARCI, we run 14 different programs that speak to the needs of survivors and their children on the ground. And these include a substance abuse unit, a child protection unit. So the child protection unit is one of those units that I spoke about in the community-based response a presentation, where we have social workers that go out to schools and they will run a 9-week program with children on issues that are impacting them. And that ranges from things like stress and anxiety that most children would be exposed to, but can be tailor-made to that school if this, let's say the pupils in the school or the learners in the school are being subjected to, for instance, bullying or cyberbullying. So the program itself is tailor-made to the school. It really is, the program is informed by input from the learners, but also input from the educators. And while we are actually running this 9-week program with the schools, we're looking to see which of the children look like they might be falling through the cracks. Those children and any other children at all in the community are then invited into the program at the center, where they can come in and have ongoing medium-term counseling. That counseling would cover everything from behavior modification to bereavement counseling to trauma debriefing, anything really that the child might need. We have an economic empowerment program at the center. That economic empowerment center runs accredited job skills training. So at the moment we do home-based care. All women that come into the shelter go through basic IT skills training. They also are offered the opportunity to join our entrepreneurial program, which has two programs that we run at the moment. We run a sewing program and a beading program. And in those programs, the women are taught to make different products, bags and bracelets. They are paid for per product for the work that they do. They're taught a skill that when they leave the shelter, they can use anywhere that they are. And they're then obviously not dependent on a very volatile job market, but it also is a way for the center to pull in income to the center itself. So when we sell these products, a small percentage of the sales would come through to the center as well. We obviously have a psychosocial program. We have an ECD center for our children between the ages of 2 and 6. We also have a homeschool center for our children that are in schools. And this came about because of COVID. We were totally full when we went into lockdown level 5 on the 26th of March, 2020. And we had in excess of 60 children who weren't in school and were meandering around our corridors. We really quickly had to come up with a plan. And that plan was we had a survivor at the time that was a qualified educator, and we decided to set up the homeschool center. The homeschool center follows an online curriculum. It's accessible at all ages and all standards for the children, and the children actually would come in every day and go into the program and do different tasks overseen by this educator she has an assistant that helps her. We also have second stage housing for women that have gone through the shelter program proper, but their lives are still at risk and they still need a period of time to be fully supported by the center. So women that are in our second stage housing generally would have got employment already, but they would still need help with counseling. We still do things like providing their food, assisting with school placements, etc., etc. We have a very robust advocacy and lobbying program, which really speaks to making sure that policymakers and the legislature are aware of the impact of gender-based violence when they are drafting legislation and policy. We have an outreach program where we go to primarily corporate organizations and we talk to them about GBV, about resources that are available. And while we're doing these workshops, we are at the same time running our services. So we'll have social workers with us in the building doing counseling. We will have our paralegal there and she will be assisting with drafting affidavits, etc., etc. We have a legal protection program, so we help women get their protection orders, their divorce orders, and their maintenance orders. I've spoken a little bit about the GBV Hub. And then we also have a food parcel distribution program. And that program really speaks to ensuring two things. One is once a woman has left the shelter, we support her with a very generous food parcel for the first 4 months after she's exited. That does two things. One is gives us an opportunity to see how she is doing post shelter. So what are her challenges at the moment and whether we can help her. So it's a really good way of making sure that we really do have access to her and can render aftercare services. But over and above that, having her have access to food, and this is more important for us, means that she's not absolutely trammeled by considerations of survival, that she can because she knows that there's food on the table, take her time in getting the children into school or looking for work, etc., etc. It just really gives her a breather while she's trying to find her feet back in the community. I think that you all know what a Kosoleka Center is. I'm going to pop over and past the next couple of slides. I just wanted to highlight that we have, I'm on slide number 6 now, Mel. We have signed memorandum of understanding with key government departments like DSD, DOH, Department of Justice, the MPA, the Office of the Family Advocate, etc. And these are very simple memoranda of understanding that really speak to collaboration, support, making sure that we have effective referral pathways and that women are really supported in all that they need. Moving on to slide number 6. Just the general services that we have. There's obviously a 24-hour emergency safe accommodation for GBV survivors. We also, after hours, would assist any woman at all. So should she come in and she's indigent, we would take her in, have her stay over for the night, make sure that she's got food and clothing, put her into our emergency room, and then do basic containment therapy with her. The next morning, the social workers would see how they can assist her with referrals, etc. Our intake unit is a walk-in service for women and children in the community. There's no barriers to accessing that service. We don't take appointments. You can come to the gate. You'll be seen not only for things like counseling if you are a GBV survivor or a survivor of crime, but also we do referrals from that program, and you could merely just walk in. Counseling happens there, as I set out, and obviously the shelter assessment would happen there as well. Our assessment is really, really easy. If a woman has been subjected to recent abuse, abuse is described as it is set out in the Domestic Violence Amendment Act, then she meets our criteria to be admitted to the shelter. We obviously also do referrals from that program, and that will be to the shelter, to our substance unit, which is a completely separate shelter that offers services to women that are addicted to tik, marijuana, and mandrax, but are GBV survivors. And that substance program runs all of the programs that we run in the shelter proper. So things like economic empowerment, the entrepreneurial programs, parenting classes, first aid training, etc., etc. But over and above it, the women in the substance abuse program also receive 12-step support for their addictions. And then we also refer from the intake unit to our legal and child protection programs. Slide number 9 just speaks to the 4-month stay in the shelter, and the different programs that are available for the children. So that, as I said, we have an ECD program for the children, we have an after-school program, we have a homeschool program, we have a counseling program, and we do holiday programs for them. One of the things that we do that is quite unique is our orientation program. So for the first 2 weeks that a woman is with us, she doesn't immediately go into the shelter proper. She spends 2 weeks in our orientation program because we recognize the value of just giving her an opportunity to de-stress, take a deep breath, and actually realize that she's finally safe. And research shows that starting immediately with high impact counseling, etc., is counterintuitive. So what we do in that orientation period, we give her an opportunity to take a breath. We also would start working with her on her individual development plan and all of the other assistance that she might need, like identity documents, but really is just a time to relax and find her bearings with us. On slide 11, I speak to the other services that we run, obviously skills training, parenting skills, computer literacy, and I've spoken to things like our counseling services, but we do refer to psychologists and psychiatrists as is necessary. We also do referrals to occupational therapies. A lot of the time, the children that come into our center have fetal alcohol syndrome, so we use their assistance to actually support the children. We have a nurse on board, so we do in-house assessments and referral to clinics. And then we do other broader health support. So things like yoga, we do weekly yoga classes. We have a little gym. We also do a monthly hike up mountains where both the staff and the survivors go off. It's an incredible day for us, and we do health workshops. So we have doctors and surgeons come in quite regularly and speak to things like breast cancer and sexual and reproductive health, and immunizations and that sort of thing, just to make sure that our women are fully capacitated to see how they can support themselves health-wise. And I'm moving on to the last slide. That is it. If there's any questions, I'll take them though.
Thank you for that, Bernie, and for all the work that you so nicely articulated in terms of what Sarki Bartman is doing for women and their children. I'm going to open up to any of the participants if they have any questions for Bernie. Cindy Siwe, you may go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Joy. For me, it's not a question, but just to thank Bernie for this wonderful presentation. She's the Sarki Bartman Center is setting such a high standards for us shelters. We are learning a lot from you guys, and just now with your presentation, when you were speaking about the orientation period, that really lit up a bulb in my head. Like, wow, that is such a very important thing to do, because sometimes we just delve into the therapeutic process and not really give our survivors time to breathe. So that's something I would also like to benchmark with our shelters here in Mpumalanga, just to see if it can work and how we can go about it. It's something that we really need to start doing, because really, as you had said, Bernie, just going into the therapeutic process, research has shown that it's not really productive. So thank you so much for that. And then also with your food, with your economic empowerment skills, those I don't know if maybe you can assist us with maybe obtaining the accredited service providers, because with us we struggle with getting those. We do find people who come and would assist with your ICT skills. Like for example, at GRIP in the past year, we had some skills, ICT skills from Vodacom, but they were not accredited. So if you could maybe like show us the ropes on how we can go about getting those accredited service providers. But thank you so much, Joy. Hi, Shem, you guys are doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bernie, not Joy. Bernie, yeah.
Don't worry. We're all interchangeable here anyway.
Oh, it's like
Absolutely, Cindy. Now, I just wanted to, really reiterate that we are here to assist. And if you're thinking about let me get together a GBV hub and start doing the community-based work, it's really not difficult, but I can certainly take the time to take you through what is needed. Same thing with the training. That's the idea, is that we should be supporting each other, networking with each other, and finding out how we can refine our processes, or just really how we can even start. Everybody's got my cell phone number. Send me a WhatsApp and say, look, I need this. Cindy, I will have I'll ask my PA to get you the accredited job skills training service providers, and then we can also ask them if they can help us with people nationally.
I would really appreciate that, Bernie. I'm still in awe. Like, I'm still trying to get the information you shared with us. Like, wow, thank you.
Gotcha.
Over to Sidi.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is well on this so cold morning. But Benedine, when you're making us feel like we are running like 100 steps behind you. I would.
Ooh, no, no.
But I liked the orientation period that you give to clients, because it's something that I also try to do, but I did not really have a structure of how to do it correctly. Because I would just give them like maybe 2 or 3 days before I started talking to them. So I think maybe if we can engage further on how to actually do it proper and have it like in like a structure that I can apply it to all the clients that come into the shelter. And then again, I heard you talking about the shelter having a certain percentage of the things that maybe the ladies would do at the center. I was wondering if that would also be possible for us to adopt, because currently we okay, I'll give this example. We buy makeup things, you know, the blush, foundations, all those kind of things that ladies need to put on makeup. And then we have partnered with this lady. She owns like a beauty school where she comes in and then she teaches them the skill, because we've realized that there's a big market for that. Because when you get a face beat, you pay what, 500, 300 rands to like 1,000 rand, depending on the kind of makeup that you would want. So we pay for the things that they would need, and then we pay for the transport for the lady to come and teach them. However, as the center, we are not getting anything back, because we are too focused on getting the ladies to have some money. So what we would do is that we would save the money for them, and they would take all of it when they leave. So I'm trying to find out if there is a way that we can also adapt that to say, okay, maybe from every 500 rands that you do, the shelter can keep maybe 50 rands without making them feel as if though they are working for us, you know. So I would also like to engage further on that.
Really, absolutely. You know, I can certainly, and maybe we can use this opportunity at the Indaba, and those that are interested, we can talk to both the entrepreneurial program and the orientation program. They are so easy to do. I mean, just to give you an idea, we made over 500,000 rand on the entrepreneurial program, pure profit last year. So there's a way to actually, you know, to use that and actually sustain yourselves. That, you know, we are trying out the hardest to not become the DSD completely dependent. So we are pushing our own initiatives to make sure that we're more sustainable. And I would welcome the opportunity to sit down and have a look at what you're doing and how you can structure it so that income can come into to your center as well.
Just to follow up quickly before Ms. Joy cuts me off. When we are in the process of making profits, doesn't the DSD take it as now we are moving from being a non-profit into like a profit organization? Because I think maybe that is why we've been quite afraid to tap into that, because we are afraid of being seen as making profit.
No, darling. So that really speaks to, you're not making a profit overall. You're doing, and they love it, because you're taking the initiative. I'm talking about DSD now, to make sure that you're more sustainable. All funders have been blown away by the fact that we actually are taking the reins in our own hands and doing all that we can. So you're not making a profit overall. You're just making enough to keep the program running. So to things like, you know, buying with the sewing, buying your machinery, your material, paying for wages, that sort of thing.
Oh,
There's
thank you so
absolutely
much.
no problem with doing it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Tsidi and Bernie. Before I hand over to, I see now Louise had a question. I just want to ask that all participants please register in the chat their name, surname, organization, and email address, please, so that you can also get access to all the presentations. Mel will send that on to you. I saw a hand earlier from Nell Louise. Are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Great stuff.
My question was answered while Bernadine was talking. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. And if I can just add with Bernardine's presentation, I'm really, really pleased, Bernie, that you actually have in your program offering the 2-month repeat client section, because we know that in the past, in terms of working with women, that women go back and they want to try again, but then it doesn't work out. And we know why it also doesn't work out, because whilst they were in the shelter, they were educated and empowered, and now they go back to that abusive partner. Nothing has happened to him. And so the abuse sometimes becomes much more excessive. And the only place that they know that can assist them is the shelter. And so it is great that you've actually built that in for like the 2-month repeat client, So lovely. Thanks for that. Are there any other questions? Before we close, and has everyone put their name, surname, and organization and email address into the chat for Mel to send the presentations through to you? If there are no further questions, I really just want to say thank you to Victor Pike and Bernardine Bacher for wonderful presentations. It was really robust in terms of the questions and the conversations, and I know that there are going to be further conversations outside of this platform. And great that we're looking at some of the things to be presented, the topics in the Indaba as well. Victor, do you have parting comments or question?
I'm just excited to hear from Benny and other stakeholders, the questions and the comments. I'm excited. Otherwise, I'm fine. So I'm looking forward to partner with anyone to offer my services for the main goal, the main purpose. We want to see a better man in our society. We want to see men that take responsibility, champion men. That's all what we are fighting for. Make sure that we close the gap between fatherlessness and absenteeism of fathers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any parting comments from your side, Bernie?
No, darling, I just want to say that I can highly recommend the work that Victor's doing in the community and the assistance that he has brought us within Sarki Bartman and our surrounding communities. It has been phenomenal to see the difference in boys. He sometimes runs sports workshops with them, and it's incredible to see the difference in the boys as well as men. So I can highly recommend his mentorship. I love working with him. We're seeing such incredible results. But over and above that, see you all at Indaba. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bernie. Lisa, Mel will send you Victor's details. If anyone wants Victor's details, Mel has it. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Thank you.
Joy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
everybody.
Victor. Thank you, Bernadine, on
Bye.
behalf of NSM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.